Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, it's a Tuesday, so that means a new Let's Play video. How am I letting myself play today? Well, today I am going to be showing some neglected supplies some love. And that's going to help me play because it's been so long since I've used them, they're like brand new to me. So it's like I kind of went shopping in my own art studio and found new stuff. I'm going to be using tissue tape from Tim Holtz, and it has beautiful, wonderful musical notes all over it. Love this thing. And of course, did everything go as planned as I'm doing this? No, I had a plan in my head and it did not go as planned. It actually went a whole lot better. Yeah, that's how that works for me. Now this is for Let's Play, and if you're not familiar with Let's Play and the weekly link party, you can find out all the information over on my blog at acolorfuljourney.com, and there is a $50 gift certificate giveaway this month. It's to Amazon.com, and you can get entered and find out all the details over on the blog. Well, enough of my talking, let's start playing. Well, here's the tissue wrap, and it's the name of its composer. Loved it with all those musical notes on it. Love music, so I knew I would use this. And I did a little bit, and then I haven't used it in a really long time. Probably my guess is 3 years. So it is time to get this out and use it again. How am I going to stick this on? Am I going to go upright? Am I going to go sideways? But more importantly, how am I going to adhere it? I could use something like a glue stick or gel medium, but instead I'm going to opt for the easy way, and that's with a Xyron. By running it through this machine called the Creative Station, it's going to turn it into one giant sticker. And I didn't have to run it through there very straight because you saw that was a little crooked, but I'm going to end up with a big piece of sticker. Well, the plan for this was to put down one giant piece of this as one big sticker. But as I looked at this, I started seeing lots of little stickers in it. So grabbing some scissors, I'm just cutting it apart, and I'm going to create little stickers with this. Very random feeling, and I'm actually kind of thankful that they have numbers on this that, they go along with the musical part of it, because that lets me know which end is up, because you know what? Is it this the right way or is that the right way? You can tell I love music, but it's not like I read it all the time. Well, I'm not very far into this project, and I have already deviated from my original plan. Is that a crime? Is that going to be a crisis? Absolutely not, because I do this all the time. I make a plan and I don't really stick to it because it's really more like guidelines. For me, I need a place to start, and then from there, I see where the play takes me. So with this one, my goal was really to just use this tissue wrap and play with it, and that's what I'm doing. So that's really, I'm hitting my objective. Well, as I get the last little piece of this put on here, I'm now going to work on adding some other things to it. I've got the musical notes on there, but for some reason it's making me think of dancing too, and I've got just the perfect rubber stamp for it. But I've got to go find it, so I'll be right back with that. Well, I found the rubber stamp. I've had it forever, and I am just inking it up here with some archival ink that is incredibly dry. I really need to re-ink that ink pad, so this really isn't showing up the way I thought. I think we can all say, oops, right now. I expected something, well, a little bit different in the look, but that's okay, because it really is an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. I don't know what that opportunity is yet, but it's presenting. Well, most definitely we need to get a little color in here. This is not going to stay black and white for very long. And I decided to pull out the Dylusions paints. I really couldn't decide which colors I wanted to go with, so I pretty much grabbed them all. That way I've got all sorts of choices here. And still I'm like, what color do I want to go with? And you know what? I'm just going to pick one and start with it. So I'm starting with the blue, and I am just going to randomly put it in places. You can tell this is not deep thought. You can tell that this is not a fine and detailed technique. This is just slapping on some paint because I needed to get some color on there. And part of the reason why I slap paint on as I'm doing this kind of thing is it's just play. I'm just kind of running with it and having a good time, and I'm not really worried about how perfect it is or is it going to look right when it's done. It's really just about letting myself loose with some color and some play. Well, I still really want to use that rubber stamp, so I'm going to give it a try with paint this time. So just brayering some paint out there on an inking palette by Graphics, and what I'm going to do then is just stamp around randomly, kind of what I was doing with the black ink, but this time with bright green. And I still want a little more green on there, so that's what paintbrushes are for, and I'm just going to kind of spread that around. Now, what am I going to do to clean off my supplies? I'm cleaning off my brayer right there. And to clean off that rubber stamp, first thing I'm going to do is, well, stamp a little bit more with it. And then I'm going to grab a baby wipe. A baby wipe will get most of the paint off of it. And then I'll just take, if there's any paint left on it, I would take it over to the sink and use an old toothbrush on it. Not a new toothbrush, an old toothbrush that you haven't used for art anymore, because once you put paint on it, yeah, then you shouldn't put it on your mouth. But you probably know that. But there's still paint on that inking palette, and I don't want to waste any of that. So I'm just going to grab a piece of that tissue wrap and I am going to just pull up the paint from that. That way also too, that inking palette that I've got will be ready to use with another color next time I want to play around with rubber stamps and paint. And that paper, yeah, it's going to be great in an art journal page somewhere. Well, staying with that music theme, I have grabbed the treble clef stencil from Nancy Curry over at Stencil Girl Products. And what I'm going to do here is just very loosely stencil it on. I've got a lot of paint on that cosmetic sponge, kind of by accident, so we'll call that an oops. So there's a good chance that some of it's going to run because I'm not being very careful about this. So I'm going to stay with that music theme and the dancing, and yeah, that isn't totally dry yet, but that's okay. It shouldn't be much of a problem, and if it is, I'm just going to call it an oops. Well, I'm going to grab a row of dancers from my Learning to Dance stencil. I've got several different dancer rows to choose from, and of course you can use just one or two or any combination of them. But I'm going to go for an entire row going across there, and see the way that stencil bubbled up, that buckled up there? Yeah, that's not going to work. I'm so going to need to flatten that thing out before I start stenciling. I'm grabbing that black paint right on a cosmetic sponge, and I am just going to stencil away. Notice I start out by pouncing up and down, straight up and down. That gives you the crispest, clearest stenciling usually, but I don't have the patience to keep doing that. I tend to go more to a side-to-side motion because in my mind, it's going a little bit faster. Yeah, really big difference between the two if you really start to measure it. No, not a big difference at all, but it sure feels that way to me when I'm doing it. But you know what? If things don't stencil absolutely perfectly, you know what I'm going to say. It's just an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. Well, as I look at this art journal page at this point, it's missing something. I need some words. So I'm going to grab some words off of this stencil, but I'm just going to take that cosmetic sponge and just stencil parts of it. I'm not going to do the whole thing at once, and it's really easy to do when you're using a cosmetic sponge because you can control where it's going, which is one of the reasons why I've been using a lot of cosmetic sponges lately when I'm stenciling. Well, that and that my daughter went to the store and I asked her to get me 6 packages of them, and she got the 100 count one, so I actually have 600 of them now instead of a much smaller number that I was expecting. But anyway, back on point here to stenciling the rest of the words. I'm getting these on here, so now that I've got some words, some titles, this is starting to really come together for me. Now, one of the nice things about using Dylusions paints is that you can write on it. It's a very matte paint. She designed it for journaling. But the one thing you do kind of need to wait for is for it to completely dry. Well, I'm not really going to do that. I'm just going to try and stay in the drier areas. So I'm bringing in a pen and adding some of my scribbled journaling and thoughts here all around on the page. Well, thanks for joining me for this week's Let's Play video. If you're new to Let's Play, it's a weekly feature over on the blog at acolorfuljourney.com, and it's focused all about play and how you let yourself play. There's a different theme for each month, and there's a weekly link up where you can share what you're playing with and see and be inspired by other people's play. And of course, there's a giveaway, $50 gift certificate each month, and this month it's to Amazon.com. You can head over to the blog and find out all the information about Let's Play, as well as getting yourself entered to win. Thanks so much for being a part of this colorful journey.